Hey guys, welcome back to more Entitled People stories. In this video, my daughter banned me from attending her wedding that I paid for, so I taught her a lesson. Let's dive right into the video. I felt it was time to finally share an experience I had with my family a few years back. I do this not as someone who is petty or angry, but as a warning for those who end up in my position. I hope that you somehow find catharsis in this story and know that you're not alone. My wife and I have been separated for close to a decade. In court, she was given full custody since my position at the time could not accommodate full visitation rights. I work as a clinical research associate with clinical trials, and I'm often called to travel to different hospitals and doctors' offices to make sure that protocols are being followed. I can get that call less than 48 hours before I'm expected to be at a certain hospital. I knew that my ex-wife had a more predictable schedule and hoped that my daughter would understand why I had not fought more for custody. We still met and I had her for a few days at a time, but as she got older, there was an animosity that she held towards me that I could not break her out of. I know that my ex-wife had something to do with it. She had always deemed me too unattached from any relationship, and I'm sure that my daughter picked up on it as she grew up. Our relationship was limited due to this, and a part of me hoped to have the opportunity to support her if she needed someone else to help her out besides her mom. That opportunity arrived when my daughter announced her engagement. My ex-wife was the one who told me, letting me know about the plans that my daughter had for the wedding and the vision she hoped to encapsulate that day. When my wife told me that my daughter already had a date in mind, I told her that I would help out financially if necessary. My daughter had a specific venue that she wanted to use, so I thought I could help her and get back into her good graces by booking the venue for her with my money. I told her over the phone and she was absolutely ecstatic, thanking me and telling me just how much stress that took off of her. For a while I did not hear from my daughter, which I assumed was a good thing since she was probably very busy planning to interact with me. I still felt glad that I had paid for the venue and that she had gotten excited about that, and I had hoped it meant that our relationship was on the mend. Well, the invitations for the wedding went out a few weeks later, but I did not receive one. I figured something had happened to it or it got lost in the mail before I went to talk to my daughter about some final preparations for the venue. I think it was about a month before the date of the wedding. I'll be honest, my memory is not the best anymore, so I often use my phone to record conversations I have with people if there's something important that I need to remember. I asked my daughter if I could use my phone to record us, and she agreed. We spent a good hour going over plans, how the reception would be set up, and where the guests would park. I remember I grabbed my phone to leave, but then decided to ask her about the wedding invitation, just in case it got lost in the mail. I just wanted to make sure I kept to the dress code the day off since I hadn't actually seen the invitation. My daughter laughed and told me that it didn't get lost in the mail because she never sent one out to me. As I stood there in shock, she told me about how much her mom had told her what a terrible father I was, and she didn't want someone like that ruining her special day. I tried to talk to her to explain that I know that there were times I was not able to be there for her, but that did not mean that I loved her any less. She was my only child and I wanted to be a part of her life, especially during a time that was a turning point for her. My daughter merely shook her head though. "Grovel all you want, but you're not getting an invitation. I hate you," she told me. I reminded her that I was paying for the venue, and if I was not able to attend her wedding or be a part of it, I would cancel my reservation on the venue. I thought it'd be enough for her to at least think about it, but she just laughed in my face. "I'm not gonna let you ruin this for me, and if you don't like what I'm asking, then you can take your money and leave." I got in my car and headed home, only then realizing that I'd gotten the whole conversation recorded. I didn't think anything of it at the time, I was just heartbroken that she would reject me so outright, so I made good on the promise I gave her and called up the venue to cancel my reservation. Everything had been under my name and it was still within the window that I could cancel the reservation, so I did not have to pay any extra fees. I had made sure to give them my daughter's number so they could contact her about the booking, just so she had enough time to find another place. I did not even want to hear my daughter's voice anymore and figured she would rather hear the news from someone else instead of me. So the next day, my phone was blowing up with texts from my daughter and ex-wife asking me why the venue was no longer booked. I called my ex-wife to tell her what decision my daughter made and that it was within my rights to cancel the venue because of that. My ex-wife was apparently with my daughter and she got on the phone to scream at me about how I had ruined her special day and that she should have never accepted a gift from me if I was gonna be that selfish with it. My ex-wife ended the call with a threat that she would sue for any money they would need to find a new venue under such short notice. I did not think they would go through with the threat until I got the paperwork. I immediately went to a lawyer and told him about the situation and how my daughter had told me that I should cancel if I didn't like how she was handling her wedding. The lawyer asked if there was any record of the conversation just so there wasn't any hearsay defense. I remembered the recording I took and provided it to the lawyer, showing that it was something my daughter had agreed to. She said so at the beginning of the recording and it showed that we had discussed other things besides the venue too. The lawyer listened to the recording and immediately called the representative for my ex-wife and daughter, letting them know that we had proof in a recording that my daughter told me I could cancel if I wanted to. The proceedings didn't move forward after that. My ex-wife and daughter stepped down as soon as the recording was played to them. The charges were dropped officially a few hours later. I completely deleted their numbers from my phone and went no contact with both of them. I tried what I could to reconnect with my daughter, but I knew that I'd just be hurting myself more if I continued to try. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, do you think OP went too far with this or was he in the right? Let me know what you think about the story in the comments and how you would have handled all of this if you were in OP's shoes. The next one is titled, My Husband Had a Secret. And by the way, if you enjoy the relationship stories, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. I, 26 female, found out that my husband, 27 male, has been keeping a secret box of mementos on the top shelf of our closet and I don't know what to do about it or if I should even bring it up. I honestly don't know how the hell I'm supposed to talk about this. I genuinely am in disbelief. So the backstory is my husband, let's call him Lee, and I have been together since our sophomore year in high school. We were each other's first everythings and for the most part I feel like we honestly have a picturesque marriage. I'm currently 5 months pregnant with our first child and have taken it upon myself to DIY the guest bedroom into a nursery, but to do that I wanted to sort through the stuff in there and get rid of anything unnecessary. I think it's relevant to say that I'm pretty short, 5'2", so I don't really store things up high since I cannot reach there, but my husband is a foot taller than me, so he does not have his tendency. Which is how I found the memento box on the top shelf. It was just a plain cardboard box, so I didn't think much of it at first, but since I didn't remember putting it up there, I wanted to see if it was something that needed to go into storage or if it was just junk. I don't know what I was expecting, but inside the box there was a photo album, a trash bag and a black leather bag. The album had just my name plus Lee's written on the cover, so I thought it would be something nice, something sweet, because Lee has a tendency to gift me sentimental things, but no. The album was full of nude pictures of myself, all of them marked with dates and a short journal-like entry. The first one was from our first time from when we were teens and the latest one was marked from the night I surprised him with my pregnancy announcement. Most of the pictures are poor quality, but some are clearly of me sleeping after the deed. These journal entries talk about it, how he ranks each experience and his favorite part of it, like some weird logbook. Inside the bags were some of my lingerie and even some old razors and hairbrushes. I don't know why on earth he keeps them, but he has 2 bags full. I don't know how or what to do. I mean, is this normal behavior? Is this some twisted form of romance on his part? A part of me feels like I should not feel as disgusted as I am, but this violates my own boundaries since I explicitly told him in the past that I was against sending or giving him any nude photos. Reddit, what do I do? I love my husband, but I'm not sure how to confront him about this. And some users in the comments said, no, this is not normal at all. This is also not romantic at all. The fact that he took pictures of you sleeping and has them in an album is incredibly concerning. Him ranking times you all had intercourse is setting off even more red flags. This is creepy and inappropriate behavior. I cannot imagine my fiancé taking pictures of me sleeping, let alone keeping him a log of our sex life. Girl, you have to show him the box and demand answers, and don't go easy on him. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP is overreacting, or should she confront the creepy husband? I would say OP definitely needs to confront him, but then again, I'm not sure how he can talk himself out of this one. This is just insanely creepy and inappropriate. The commenter further said, none of this is okay or normal, and you should really be concerned as to why he thinks any of that is okay. Another person in the comments said, taking creepy pictures of you as you sleep naked and having naked photos of you as a minor in general, and then rating every sexual experience with you is not normal at all. The lingerie too and the razors and hairbrushes make it even creepier. This is creepy obsessed stalker stuff. Another person said, what in the Joe Goldberg? So, an update to the story. I'm not sure if anyone cares, and while I didn't reply to any comments, I did end up talking with my husband about this just a few days ago. I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to just act like I didn't see anything and go on with my happy life. However, after giving birth to my baby girl about a month and a half ago, I guess the stress and everything added up and I let it slip in an argument. I don't remember all that was said, but I was exhausted, and my husband, while he's been super helpful and took over the household chores for me and helps out with the baby girl, had also just been getting on my nerves. I sort of exploded on him in a way I'm not proud of. Worst of all, he was not even doing anything. All he had been doing was reminiscing about how I used to make a Sims family of us when I was in uni and how creepy it was. He said it endearingly. I don't really know why I got so mad, but I basically said something along the lines of how he's the creepy one because he has a secret stash of stuff hidden from me. It felt really bad because he got all pale and went quiet, and then he sort of said he needed space and went to blow off some steam at the shooting range, which he does a lot when he needs to think, so I didn't question it, and he came back home around dinner and said he was ready to talk. I asked him about all of the things I found, especially the photos, and I reminded him again that I never agreed to making nudes of any sort, and he apologized and agreed to burn them. Apparently our history goes back further than even I knew, as he recounted that we actually met before high school. I had no idea, but his mom, who is a divorce attorney, was the very same on my mom used when she separated from her first husband, not my dad. I called my mom after to confirm, and she told me it was true, but her and my mother-in-law never told me because my mom's divorce was messy and she hates talking about it. So anyways, back to the first meeting thing, my mother-in-law at the time often had Lee hang around her office after school, and it was during one of these days that my mom had to take me with her to speak with mother-in-law in person. Lee was actually the boy that I played with in the waiting room. I cannot believe he remembered that because I totally forgot it. So according to him, that was the first meeting, was the day he knew I was special. Anyway, Lee told me that while he had tried to pass it off as a crush as he got older, it never really went away, which led him to look into his mom's case files. In my state, attorneys have to keep them for 7 years, and he found my mom on Facebook and then my dad in her friends list and managed to find my first and last name in order to find my Instagram. He had convinced his parents to let him transfer from his private K-12 school to my public high school using the excuse that they had a better athletics program, which is not actually far-fetched since my high school was one of the best in the state for that, and once he found out where I was going, thanks to my dumb self putting it in my bio. I thought that us meeting was a sheer coincidence and that we fell in love naturally, a classic sort of high school sweethearts, but no, Lee had orchestrated it all. I took my daughter with me to stay with my mom and stepdad, while Lee agreed to stay home and let me think. I spoke to my mom as well as mother-in-law and father-in-law, and Lee's parents are not happy with him in all honesty, and mother-in-law is especially mad because of client confidentiality. My mom gave me some good advice that being that I should reflect on it, Lee had displayed any other red flag behaviors. I can honestly say that no, he had not, but since I'm biased, I asked my friends and those close to me if they noticed anything. And so far, everything else about Lee seems to check out. I've never felt endangered by him, even when I told him I needed some distance for a few days. I want to make this marriage work, Reddit, but is this something that therapy can fix? And another comment from OP to add some context. Hey, this is a really late for a reply, I'm sorry, I wasn't ready to acknowledge it for a long time. Lee told me that he didn't mean anything by it and wanted to just have a keepsake collection of some memorable moments we shared. He did acknowledge that he knew it was wrong and apologized, and he promised me he would get rid of the pictures by burning them. And another update to the story, Lee and I have since been going to couples counseling, and he is going to individual therapy. After the whole drama that happened a few months ago, he sort of had a come to Christ moment where he realized that the way he had been obsessing over the idea of me was not the same as a healthy love. We spent a few weeks apart so he could work on himself, and he turned over his device's passwords and accounts to me so that I could go through and calm my worries because I was really anxious about the explicit photos. Since then though, we are back in our house and with our baby girl, and our marriage is back on track and better for it. And yeah guys, I gotta say, I'm happy for the happy ending because honestly, I did not really expect that. Most stories on Reddit don't have a happy ending like this. But I guess then again, it is better for both of them because they recently had a baby and raising a kid alone is really tough. Then again though, those were some massive red flags and personally, I'm not sure if I would have stayed together with that guy. The next one is titled, The Neighbor Nobody Needed. So, I live on a corner lot and my driveway is at the rear of the house next to an open alley. My neighbor, who works in construction and brings home many trucks and trailers, likes to park some of these vehicles on his yard or on the sidewalk in front of his house. Lately, he's been driving through my open driveway with one truck with a trailer attached because he is parked on his lawn and I am guessing cannot make the left turn to use the alley, so he just uses my driveway as if it's not a big deal. My driveway is dirt except on front of my garage, which turns to mud when it rains, so he leaves huge deep tire tracks. He refuses to be polite and figure out another way like I have asked. So I have a very small car that I have now begun parking farther back from the garage, essentially blocking the end of my driveway. Now he has to park the truck with the trailer attached on the street where it should be or figure out another way to exit. A friend suggested I bury 2x4s with nails in my driveway, but that is too extreme to me. I don't want to cause damage, I just want to teach a lesson. So far it is working. I have not seen how he moved his truck and trailer, but he's no longer parking it on his lawn, but on the street where there is plenty of room. I feel vindicated. And yeah, ripe stars, that is definitely not a bad way of getting revenge. And by the way, I'm curious, have you ever gotten revenge on anyone in your life? And if so, what did you do? Let us know in the comments. The next one is titled, Neighbor Should Not Have Called the Cops on Me. We have lived in a really quiet neighborhood, a dead end. The road is not marked, so we used to park on both sides with one lane for cars to pass. Two cars don't pass at the same time. Our relationship with our neighbor was good up until now. He used to come in our yard to ask my father to teach him how to garden. When he goes on vacation, he tells us we can park in his land, which we never did because we have enough room for our cars, but that was nice of him. Until one day he had a friend come over with a really large truck to help him work on his garden, and my father's car was parked in front of our house. Therefore the truck could pass because there was our neighbor's car on the left and ours was on the right. The neighbor did not want to move his car, saying it was on his property in front of his house on the public paved driveway, and he called us home to move my father's. No one was home except my 13-year-old brother. He called my father to tell him about the situation, and my father told the neighbor to take his car keys and move his car as he was not home. The neighbor refused and called the cops. They showed up and he explained. The cops were quite annoyed that they had to show up for that and took my father's keys to move his car out of the truckway. My family was pissed, but I was enraged because in my country it is quite a big deal to call the cops on someone. So I took it upon myself to make it right. I started parking on his side of the road and he came to me many times to tell me it is his property. But as it was paved by the state and had plots put there by the city officials, I did not believe him and told him to bring me proof this was his land. He had a survey and went to me one day to show me that this was indeed his property. I said okay and did not park on his side anymore. However, I called the mayor's office to tell them that I would like the city to pay for plots in front of my house and pave the driveway too, as they did for my neighbor. Turns out my neighbor had a friend working at the mayor office and unofficially paved his driveway and put plots in front of his house, not his property, to stop people from parking on his side of the road. It was deemed illegal, and a few days later the mayor office sent a guy to take off the plots and the neighborhood had 2 more public parking spots. It was petty, but it was worth it. If he had just moved my father's car himself, none of it would have happened. No need to say we no longer have a friendly relationship with him, and he is not welcome anymore when he shows up unannounced to borrow gardening tools. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. My story takes place in South Africa, where my mother-in-law had inherited a beautiful piece of land. The land my property was right next to is a well-known lake, and ever since my mother-in-law got the house, she would always invite over all of the family kids and they would spend the day swimming, barbecuing and having fun. My husband remembers these memories from his teenage years. Not that long ago, we are in our mid-20s and it has always been the hangout spot in the family, if you will. In order to get the house on the property, you have to drive through another person's land. However, the old couple that lived there for years and years were extremely polite about this and did not mind letting us drive through their yard. However, when the wife passed away, the old husband had to be put in a nursing home and the property went up for sale. So, of course, after this, some douchebag bought it and bought the land the property was on as well. We will keep calling this guy douchebag because that is exactly what he was. Immediately after buying the land, douchebag tells my mother-in-law and my husband's family that they are not allowed access to the property anymore because they have to drive through his land to get to it. My husband, who is exceedingly kind and does not like confrontation at all, tried explaining how important this house was to the family. Douchebag said he did not care about that, he did not want anyone driving on his easement to access the property. My husband even offered to pay a yearly fee or something to be able to drive on the easement to access the property. But unfortunately, douchebag was adamant about not letting anyone in. At this point in the story, I would like to mention that this was a small town or village of some sort. Everyone knew each other and my husband's family were pretty well known in the community as cattle ranchers. They had a good reputation as a good, wholesome family, so in other words, it's not like this guy had any reason to think that my husband's family would tear up his lawn or damage his property or anything like that. Anyways, flash forward a little bit and we get to the emotional part of the story. My husband's uncle was diagnosed with a fatal disease a couple of months prior to this. His dying wish was to be cremated and have his ashes spread in the property that he loved so much and had so many memories on. Of course, we were all anxious because we did not even know if douchebag would let us access the property to do so. I mean, you would think that one night might make an exception, but this guy was coming off as a major douchebag. Very reluctantly, he let us access the property to do so. It is crazy to me that even in an emotional time like this, he still wanted to hem and haw about my husband's family and I accessing the property to spread my mother-in-law's brother's ashes. However, in the end, he did let us, so we were happy until the day came we were going to spread his ashes. In my husband's family, they have a prayer ritual that they perform when they are burying someone. Even though the circumstances were a little bit different in this case, they still wanted to honor the tradition they so much believed in. Except when they were getting ready to start the prayer, something caught their eye and sure enough, douchebag was standing on the property line watching them. What the hell? He could not even give them the privacy and respect they deserved while they were saying goodbye to a loved one. Of course, my husband nor did any of his relatives say anything. They were good people, sometimes too kind, and besides that, douchebag owned the only feed store in town. Because many of my husband's relatives were cattle ranchers, they did not want to burn bridges and have their source of feed for their cattle taken away. Anyways, about a month or so after this, my mother-in-law surveys a land plot around douchebag's land because it went up for sale. She does end up buying it because she notices through the land survey that there was a way she could access her property through it. So not only was she doubling her land size, but she was also able to come and go as she pleased to the beloved property. She ends up buying a couple of more pieces of land around the area and allowed my husband to build our home on one of said pieces of land. Now, the house was under our name, but technically she owned the land, so if anything, such as renovations or constructions had to be done and it would affect the land, she would have to approve and sign for it. Our house was on the outskirts of the populated parts of the town, so we were not a part of the sewage system. Because of this, we had our own septic tank, which to be honest, we liked it better because it saved us money anyway. However, one day we came home and we saw signs that indicated the commissioner's court would be installing and hooking up this area to the sewage system. We were not happy about this, obviously. We knew that my mother-in-law did not approve because she would have told us. We called her and she was absolutely livid. The land was going to be ruined with jackhammering, construction and trucks, etc. We had no idea how this got approved without my mother-in-law's consent or signature, so we decided to do some investigating. And guess who was the contractor for this project? That is right, douchebag. When I told my mother-in-law, she was furious and ended up going to the commissioner's court. They could not even give her a half-assed answer on how this project got this far without her consent, and thus an emergency meeting was formed. The proposal to get my mother-in-law's land connected to the sewage system was denied. They were allowed to implement sewage systems to the rest of the area as long as they were nowhere near the property. So not only did douchebag lose his job, but the city also lost thousands of dollars trying to reconfigure the system. Douchebag still lives in the property next to my mother-in-law's, but no longer speaks to them. Not that they are complaining, obviously. It is also worth mentioning that my husband has brought over some cattle so they can start a mini ranch on my mother-in-law's property. Oh, and also he brought some hogs, some sheep. Either way, it is by the fence line, and I am sure douchebag enjoys the smell. And yeah, ripe stars, as we all know, what's better than getting revenge with a hog farm? That's simply one of the ultimate ways to get revenge on an awful neighbor. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.